Alexander Usyk battled hostile conditions to become undisputed cruiserweight king, and is now eyeing Tyson Fury's heavyweight crown. Alexander Usyk was already considered the world's leading cruiserweight when he entered the Cruiserweight World Boxing Super Series in 2017. He had dethroned Krzysztof Głodzki in his 10th professional contest to win the WBO title, enhancing the reputation that meant he was already widely respected for winning gold in the heavyweight division at London 2012. Usyk was rightly installed as the competition's #1 seed. Russia's Murat Gassiev was the 2nd seed, Maris Briedis of Latvia 3rd, Poland's Krzysztof Włodarczyk, Marco Huck of Germany, Dmitry Kudryashov, another Russian, and the Cubans Mike Perez and Junior Dorticos completed the field. As the 1st seed, Usyk elected to first fight Huck. When he traveled to Germany, he stopped Huck in the 10th round, putting him on course to fight, in the competition's semi-finals, Briedis, who had outpointed Perez. Not unlike against Huck, Usyk, who similarly in the future would travel to London to outpoint fellow Olympic gold medalist Anthony Joshua, traveled to Riga, Briedis' hometown, and proceeded to win the competition's most entertaining fight. Their fight was very, very close, but I don't think you could fault his performance or Briedis. They were both on full power that night. That's why it was such a tight fight. The environment in Riga was actually, they loved their boxing in Latvia, and it was a terrific atmosphere. Sauerland said, "You mustn't forget Usyk was on the road for the whole of the dubs, fighting Huck in Berlin, and Briedis in Riga. That's massive credit to him." The toughest fight, of course, was the one against Briedis. An absolutely legendary fight. It was still a pick-'em fight. You have to give him credit where credit's due. When I was promoting him in the tournament, he never complained about having to travel. Where Usyk had defeated Huck and Briedis, the heavy-handed Gassiev had stopped Włodarczyk and Dorticos. Russia had yet to launch its murderous invasion of Ukraine, but the occasion of a Ukrainian fighting a Russian in a high-profile fight represented a wider test for all involved. Much more hostile was Russia with Gassiev in the final. Sauerland continued, "The Russians, it was obviously a very big sight deal to bring the final to Moscow. It was of course a tough time, because there was already a conflict between Russia and Ukraine over Crimea at the time. So in theory, actually, he was going into what for Ukraine was a war zone, so it was extremely, extremely admirable and courageous, the way he went about it. I can't keep saying how professional he was." Gassiev at the time was a very, very dangerous opponent, in his prime, and he nullified him very early in that fight when he took a punch and gave it straight back. Respect shown in a positive sense in the ring, and it gave him that freedom to use his big shots, so he absolutely had an absolute blinding performance. The performance to beat Gassiev in Russia that night in July 2018, if you put into perspective all of the politics going on outside of it. And that's not boxing politics I'm talking about. Government politics between Russia and Ukraine at the time. It was one of the most moving performances I've ever seen in a boxing ring. Sauerland, owing to the success of his father Wilfried in promoting, had grown up immersed in boxing. Like almost every other neutral observer, he was almost in awe, what perhaps remains the finest performance of Usyk's career. The then 31-year-old's discipline born of his respect for Gassiev's power and potentially the belief that the judges in Moscow couldn't be trusted. Punch output and fluidity surpassed even that demonstrated against Joshua at White Hart Lane. He's definitely the most recognized global star to come out of it, but one mustn't forget the likes of Josh Taylor, Naoya Inoue, Maris Briedis, the promoter reflected. But of course, when you go on to become heavyweight champion, that's always going to be a special league of its own. Tyson Fury and Usyk have both got a very similar skill set in terms of boxing IQ. I'm going to go with Fury to win in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, when they fight for the undisputed heavyweight title on May 18th. Just on the basis of, because they're so level, I'll always go with the bigger man at heavyweight. I used to watch Usyk on the scales, and everyone thought he would go up to heavyweight after the tournament, and I didn't think he had the frame to carry it, to be honest.